Much about Mary in the Lutheran Church. About once a year, we get her out with the rest of the pieces of the Nativity, the creche, and we dust her off, put her on the shelf, and we talk about her on this fourth Sunday in Advent. And then after Christmas is over, we pack her away with all the other Nativity pieces, put her away for a year. But you know, there's a lot of renewed interest in Mary among Protestants. She even made the cover of Time magazine a few years ago. And her story is a good one, and it deserves to be heard and studied. After all, she was the one who said yes to God and gave birth to Jesus, even at great risk to herself. You know, the few times I've spent with Roman Catholics up at the Blue Cloud Abbey, I'm always a bit unsettled by their devotion to Mary. At the end of the last service of the day, it's a prayer at the close of the day, the Compline service, the monks there at the Blue Cloud Abbey, they'll gather in one of the side chapels and they'll face a statue of Mary and they'll sing a hymn to Mary, the Queen of Heaven. You know, I've never liked this Roman Catholic practice of praying to Mary or praying to the saints. I've never really understood it. As a good Lutheran, I've always thought that why waste your time praying to the saints when you can pray directly to Jesus yourself? But someone explained it to me this way that made sense to me. You know, when you're having problems, you will often ask a friend or maybe the church to pray for you. So why not ask friends who are in heaven to pray for you? Those who have passed on. Hebrews 12 says that we are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. Those who have passed on but continue to inspire us with their example. And perhaps they really are cheering us on and praying for us. And so praying to the saints may not be all that strange after all. In praying to Mary, well, I wonder if a lot of people, a lot of Catholics, just don't sense a greater comfort level with Mary. I mean, after all, she is a female presence in heaven. And being Jesus' mother, she might have a little extra influence in getting Jesus to answer our prayers. Who knows? On our recent trip to the Holy Land, we stopped in Nazareth and we visited the Church of the Annunciation, where it's claimed to be the place where the angel Gabriel visited Mary. Now, since the 4th century, there have been 4 different sanctuaries built on this site, and this current church was built in 1969. Inside the church, on the lower level, there's a grotto or a cave. It's believed by Roman Catholics to be the remains of the original childhood home of Mary. Now, this is all very interesting, but to me, the real value in talking about Mary is her example. I mean, she's a role model of what a faithful response to God is. Now, Mary wasn't perfect. Even in our story today, she had plenty of doubts and questions. And I imagine there was quite a bit of fear and anxiety as she thought about having to explain her pregnancy to Joseph and to her family. And yet in the end, Mary was the one who said yes to God. She said, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." She put her whole life on the line, didn't she? Body and soul. I learned something interesting. It's surprising, actually. When I was in Israel, we were driving through a little village near Mount Carmel, and we were on our way to Nazareth, and our guide told us that in this village we might see followers of a certain sect called the Druze. And they were a unique religion combining elements of Islam and Christianity and Judaism. And the interesting thing to watch for, he said, was to watch for their clothing. In particular, the men wore these baggy pants you see there, and they have a large pouch hanging down low between their legs. He explained that it has to do with their religion. You see, they believe that when Messiah comes the next time, Messiah will be born of a man. Of a man. And so these baggy pants are worn by the men in case the Messiah drops out. You know, they'll be ready to catch him with his pouch. Yeah, that's kind of the way I felt too when I heard it. I kind of smiled and thought, you got to be kidding me. A man giving birth? I mean, that only happens in Hollywood movies, right? It's a scientific impossibility. So I kind of dismissed it. And I really didn't think about the Druze again until I started thinking about this text, this story, and Mary, and thinking about having to preach about Mary and her openness to God's will, her willingness to bear the Messiah. And that's when it hit me. You see those pants with a baggy pouch hanging down? Those are the perfect symbol of Advent. Now, hang in there with me. Think about it just for a little bit. You don't know when Messiah will come and who will bear him. And so all the men wear these pants in order to be ready. Okay? Ready, watching, waiting, preparing, hoping. Aren't these all words we use to describe our posture in Advent? Can you imagine putting these pants on every morning and thinking, all right, am I going to bear the Messiah today? Will God choose me? Do I even want God to choose me? I'm not sure I would. When you put your pants on in the morning, would the words of Mary echo in your heart and in your mind? Here am I, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word. Well, I don't think these Druze pants are going to catch on in our culture. There won't be a rush to find them on eBay. You probably won't find them wrapped in a Christmas present underneath your tree. But are they really different from some of the pants you see kids wearing today? I'm not sure which ones I would rather wear. See, here's what I think is happening with these Druze pants is in wearing them, it really creates a mindset, a whole way of looking at the world, an openness to God and God's will. And isn't that exactly the lesson that Mary wants to teach us today? This fourth Sunday in Advent, each of us in our own way is to give birth to the Messiah, to give birth to what God is doing in our world today. And every day we open ourselves to God's Spirit and we say, let it be with me according to your word, God. What do you have in mind for me today, God? Sign me up for your mission. How can I give birth to whatever is new that you're longing to bring to our world? This image of giving birth was used by the Apostle Paul to talk about what God is doing in the world. He said, we know that the whole creation has been groaning in labor pains until now. See, God is giving birth to a new creation, which is groaning, the old creation groaning for redemption and restoration. And we're invited to be a part of what God's Spirit is doing by giving birth to something new, something life-giving. And so the question for us to ask today is, what does God want to give birth to in us, in you and me? Are we experiencing some labor pains in life? What groans in your body, your heart, and soul for some new life? Perhaps you're wrestling with an old hurt and resentment, and God is yearning to birth some forgiveness in you. Maybe you're struggling with an addiction, something that governs your thoughts and drains your resources and alienates you from others. And God's Spirit groans within you, longing to give birth to recovery. What might God be trying to give birth in and through you? I think of over the years there have been some people in our congregation who have given birth to some pretty amazing things in our community and throughout our world. I think of Daryl Johnson and Kids Against Hunger. Sorry, Daryl, for picking on you. Giving birth to that idea and saying yes to God. And here it is a few years later, and they've given away over 1 million meals. I think of another member of our congregation, Les Cummings, who started something called Sioux Falls Cares, which has helped over hundreds of needy families for several Christmases. I think of former members Dave and Tammy Oswald saying yes to God and starting up Helping Hands for Haiti. And now, how many mission trips have we sent people to Haiti to help those people there? You know, the list could go on and on. You could fill in your own list of things that you know have been given birth to through the efforts of people in this congregation, people who have said yes to God. But the point is that God is still sending the angel Gabriel to people today, to each and every one of us, with an invitation to participate in what God is doing today to bring justice and peace and wholeness to our world. Are you ready and willing, like Mary, to say yes to God? You know, those Drew's pants, they probably aren't likely to catch on. But like Mary, they really are a symbol of Advent, a symbol of being open to God's will for us and God's will for the world. And so this morning we're going to try those pants on and see how they fit, not literally. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to end this sermon. I want you to find one other person. And I want you to say these words to each other from our gospel lesson today. Take turns, each one of you speaking the angel's words and then Mary's words. And my hope and prayer is that these words will guide you throughout the week ahead as we prepare for Christmas. Okay, you've got your assignment. Go to work.